One of the cool things about learning Roman history from collecting Roman coins is that you will very often learn about fascinating characters you never knew about. Incredible generals, skilled politicians, scheming little weasels who made their way into power. Roman history is full of these colorful people on its lesser known parts of its history. One of such characters is Probus, emperor between 276 and 282. This man is often overshadowed by the great Aurelian, Rome's savior of the 3rd century. Probus, however, left us a really unique numismatic legacy, and even better, not only he left us a good legacy in the art style, but he left us a lot of his coins, making them really very easy to collect. So today, let's have a look at one of the best emperors you probably never heard of. Let's go! So I'm actually going to start this video with a coin from before Probus. This is a piece from Emperor Aurelian. Among many of Aurelian's edicts and reforms to put the empire back on its feet, he instituted a reform on coinage, particularly so the smaller denominations, which had become ridiculous. 2% silver content and around 2 grams of weight, like a really far cry from its older glory. So he increased the silver content to 5%, which doesn't sound like much, but he also increased the weight of the coin to a more respectable 4.5 to 5 grams. This reform didn't just increase the size of the coins. Visually, they were also completely revamped. From Aurelian onwards, coins are very well struck. They once again have visually appealing designs, to a point that many numismatists stopped calling these Antoninianus, instead calling them Aurelianus. These coins also don't have the visual realism of the early denarius, becoming more schematic in nature, but they still look fine, at least by me. They have their own little charm and they're really collectible. Probus, however, went one step further and decided to reintroduce actually well-thought designs on coins and proper state propaganda in the coins. For the last 3 decades or so, coinage had become an afterthought of the Roman state due to its constant state of crisis. It was simply not a priority to think about the message on coins. Probus, however, decided to depict himself in different kinds of clothing and to depict different priorities in his reign through the coins. So let's have a look at some of them. We kick things off right with my favorite. So Probus was an army guy. He was one of Aurelian's close advisors and lieutenants. So he was just as skilled as Aurelian in the command of troops. Everyone alive at that time in the empire knew pretty much nothing but war and crisis, which was plaguing the entire territory for some good 50 years now. The first thing in everyone's mind was, we need an emperor capable of handling military matters properly, and Probus wanted to advertise that he was the guy for the job. So, to illustrate it, this one is the so-called military bust type, where we see the emperor completely geared and ready for combat. There are quite a lot of varieties of poses for the type. This is one of the most common ones, where we can see the emperor holding his spear, which in turn is also laying over his shoulder, and he's also carrying his shield on his left hand, which you can see like in the first plan. The typical radiate crown in these coins has been sort of like morphed, transformed into a helmet. I love this type, it's very unique. The flan in this particular coin is rather big, and the coin is just completely militaristic and brutish in style. It's really nice. The legends are really straightforward. Imperator Marcus Aurelius Probus Augustus. Due to a somewhat weak strike and an uneven silvering, the reverse on my coin isn't as sharp as the obverse, but the drawing I've made will make it a little bit clearer to look at. Here we see a very violent scene. The emperor is riding his horse, carrying a scepter and saluting his people, but you can see that the horse is stepping over a captured barbarian. Probus was very successful at the Germanic border, so maybe this piece celebrated his very successful defense of the territory. The legends, Virtus Probi Augusta, translates loosely to the imperial virtue, the imperial manliness of Probus. But in contrast, here's another kind of bust that does a complete 180 and changes its message completely. This is the so-called consular bust, which actually makes a nudge to the long-forgotten Roman Senate. During the entirety of the 3rd century, it became less and less relevant, as legitimacy and power rested solely on generals and how many soldiers they could command, essentially transforming the empire into a military dictatorship. Probus, however, seemed to, at least for show, give the Senate true consideration, and this coin shows just that. So, here in this obverse, we can see that the emperor ditches his armor and puts on consular robes, very nicely decorated. I wish you people could have this coin in hand, and this is typical for this type. It really has very tiny details on his clothes, which make the coin just very pleasant and intricate to look at. It's not a lazy design. The die engraver seems to have put time and effort on the die. Probus also ditches the helmet for just a common radiant crown, and instead of a spear, he holds a scepter with an eagle on the top, a symbol of consular power. The legends are rather simple. Imperator Probus Pius Felix Augustus. I also like how they separate the legends, allowing the portrait to be a little bit larger and occupy the top section of the coin, making the entire design just bigger and nicer to appreciate. Once we head to the reverse, we see a temple. In fact, this might be a temple that you can visit today. This is the Temple of Rome and Venus, erected by Emperor Hadrian. It was a monumental temple with very high columns, and on the very center of the structure there was a massive central opening where an equally massive statue of Dea Roma, the incarnation of Rome, would be sitting in. Not a lot of the temple is left, mostly just the outer columns and the opening where this statue once sat. On our coin, however, we can see the temple in its glory of the old days. We have the triangular roof section, called a pediment, the front face of the building with a series of columns, and at the center, as if you were peeking into the bottom of the temple, we see the statue of Roma. The legends actually read the first 2 words written in the temple's entrance, Roma Aeterne, the eternal Rome. But apart from these, we also have more traditional kinds of busts in some of his coins. Let us look at some examples from 3 different mints spread around the emperor. I'm not going to go through the legends, of course, they are all talking about Probus, but notice how the style on each bust changes quite a bit depending on the region it was minted at, almost as if like every region had its own little style. So let's start by Lugdunum in Gaul, modern-day France, where we see the cuirassed bust, so just the emperor wearing his battle armor, so no shield nor spear this time. So look at him, focus on his face. He has very gentle features in this kind of bust. The mint of Lugdunum was famous for having quite a lot of quality in its engraving, and it has quite a bit of fans among ancient collectors, as it's a very old and traditional mint. It's one of the oldest mints after the Mint of Rome to be established by the imperial authority. So it had quite a lot of time to develop an engraving tradition. On the reverse, we see quite a bit of silvering still attached to the coin. And we can also see pietas, the incarnation of piety and adherence to religious tradition. We then move to Antioch. This is a type called draped bust, where the armor or whatever is being worn by the emperor is covered by some sort of cloak or drapery worn over it. Very different bust style. Instead of the delicate bust from Lugdunum, we see a very rectilineal bust with very sharp lines and very distinctive and sharp beard as well. Some people dislike the style of Antioch, but I would say that is a direct result of the intense economic activity of the city. Antioch is one of the most prolific mints of the Roman Empire, so tons of coins had to be minted for many centuries, so there simply wasn't too much time to spend making pretty dice. You just had to crank a lot of coins. The reverse is a bit worn in this one, so you have to forgive me. It shows clementia temporum, the clemency of the times, sort of like a time for forgiveness. And we see the emperor receiving a small victory from the hands of Jupiter. And then from Antioch, we move to Siscia, on modern-day Croatia. Siscia was also a very prolific mint, particularly so during the reign of Probus, since it was close to the Danube frontier, and it minted the coins that would make their way to the frontiers and pay for the legions stationed there. This is another draped bust, and this time, style-wise, I would actually say it lays somewhere between the Lugdunum and the Antioch styles, with more use of curves and smooth lines, but still with some sharp angles. I mean, pay attention to like how pronounced his jaw is. It sort of like protrudes forward as much as his nose. The reverse in this one also has quite a lot of silvering left, and we can see providentia, the intervention of the gods, sort of like a plead to all of the gods to intervene in favor of the Romans. And once we get to gold, oh boy, his gold coinage. I wish I could present you actual audio of him in film, but unfortunately I'm not a multimillionaire, so for now, pictures will have to do. I really like how the gold coinage has a certain consistency design-wise to the humble Antoninianus everyone can collect. So as you can see from the examples I'm putting on the screen, they show very similar design types, with small differences like the laurel crown instead of the radiate crown to indicate the denomination. And of course, as it would be expected, all of these designs have a certain premium touch to them. The hair and the clothes are all better engraved. The Probus is often holding something different or something more elaborate. The coins are also very sharply struck, well, as you would expect from a Roman gold coin. Probus is one of these particular emperors who don't receive a lot of attention from the, let's say, overall public, but they are very well loved by Roman coin collectors. His coins offer a great opportunity to enjoy a revival on Roman coin art, with diverse designs, high-quality coins, and it's just a fascinating moment in the history of the empire to study. All of that for reasonable prices. Coins of him are really easy to find, and particularly so if you're okay with a little bit of wear, they're very affordable. So, have you got a coin of Probus? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, consider leaving a like and subscribing if you would like to see more videos like this one. So I hope you enjoyed it, happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.